What's up, guys? Back at it, another live, another shop update. Gonna do transmission Q&A. Gonna start today off Turbo TRX. Ain't nothing prettier. This thing is done all the way up. It's got just about everything you can throw in a TRX on it, including our single turbo engine bay kit. Looking so pretty. Look at that big old sucker down there. So, wrapping her up. Still got some tuning involved in this sucker. Blake, always nice words out of you. So, she should be making some serious power, tearing up the streets here soon. So, great guy, gonna be a solid truck for him. Let's go inside. Let's see what we're doing in there. So, I gotta speak a little loud. We're making some valve covers over there. So this is a really sick truck. It's e-torque. Pro Charger, all the fun stuff. Look at this beautiful thing. Little P1SC, just, something to help power with towing. Only supposed to be a tune only. This is the real world. This is the real shit that we see. Come over here. This is the booster pump that was in it. We started seeing some mechanical gremlins. If you know JMS and booster pumps, I have never seen this before. We hit up JMS about it. They don't even have it in their system. This is 10 years old, and this is supposed to be a new part. The problem with that is right here. Focus, there you go. What's going on there? Whole bunch of garbage. So this is giving us a bunch of weird electrical gremlins. We could not do a clean pull. So now we are replacing this with a new JMS booster pump, doing it right, making it safe, that way we don't have issues down the road. Literally could not focus. We could not get a new harness because of how old it was. This was supposed to be a new JMS booster pump, and that was not the case. So we're gonna get that wrapped up, get that put in there, so we can do a clean pull. Let's go see what Arturo's up to with the old shop car. My wheels. He won't sell them, but I want those. If you got them, let me know. I will buy them. Turo, what you doing over here, boy?
Finalizing some wiring that I'm cleaning up. It's been tapped into so many times, so I just went ahead and cut all that.
Clean it up, do it right.
Stuff, yeah, and I cleaned it up so that way I can finish installing the dual pump, HHP dual pump.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So this is going to be a, it's going back. It's not going to be like what it was before, but we can't leave things alone. Jeremy, that's truest statement ever said, so it'll be something spicy. I know we talked about that. Let's go see what Eddie's up to over here on this Challenger. Woo, looking like it's about wrapped up. What's the word, Eddie?
Originally this Challenger, I believe, came in for a blower rebuild and then for fully installed. What we did notice was the alignment from the valve, water pump pulley was actually rubbing and some block, and then it actually threaded the valve. So ordered up a new water pump, just wrapping it up, just about to test it, test for leaks, making sure that these cars leave the shop at 110% with no issues, and especially with the power that we're putting in on.
Absolutely. Quality is key. I see Blake and Jeff ganging up on me in the comments. I love both of y'all. Don't worry. Look at that little 310 clutch pulley. All right, let's check this out. I think Caesar's on lunch. This is a little Pro Charged 5.7. Finishing up a fuel system. This is a 22. So the issue is the what do you call it? The 4 Innovations. It's not. They don't have anything set up for this yet. So we have to take the 21 and make it work with this car. So there is some custom work involved there, but it's coming together. We should get her on the rollers soon enough and get some results for you guys. But nice little wide body 5.7. You know me, I love my 5.7s. I have a thing for them. So over here we got Trackhawk motor going in, waiting on the headers. They got some leaks, but he went with Stainless Works, which is great. Great header. Lifetime warranty. So even though they're used headers, they're still under warranty. They can get replaced, or they can get repaired under warranty without having to spend the money on new headers. So Gonna be a really sick build when it's all finished. That Kong just shining. Look at that sucker. Woo! Let's see where else. We got a scat pack in for a detail, interior, exterior. Is they getting the I believe it's getting the gold package. So, you know, nice little 21. It's good to see. Love these cars. Obviously, we got Jeff. Can't forget him. Good old low credit. And we got Joe over there cooking up, making valve covers, getting them ready for you. Got a whole bunch of metal. And let's go take a look at the results. Woo! Oh my God. Thing of beauty. Love these things. You can see we are doing this around the clock, constantly pumping these products out for you guys. So, all right, let's go in. Let's have a little talk with Jeremy about transmissions. We do. We actually, if you would like to finance, we are able to work with a firm, able to get you the parts you need when you need them at prices that work for you.
Are you working for a firm?
No, but a firm works for us, so. All right, Jeremy.
Ready?
Yep. You want your seat?
Oh, sure. Thank you so much.
Your regular side, and we get my notepad.
All right. How's it going, everybody? Thanks for checking in. So, start off, I know we talked about some announcements for the shop and the team, so I'll get right into that. So, super exciting news. We have 2 additional salespeople joining our team. So, one starts in a week, the other starts in just over 2 weeks. So that means Logan is going to have 2 additional people to help him. So as you can see, what we're trying to do with what we have in the pipelines is we want to be able to help more people, offer better support all across the whole sales process, you know, get the parts, get the services and things that our customers need. Mm-hmm. So there's going to be multiple people here for the communication and service piece. So we're really, really excited. So in tandem with that, what it's going to do, a lot of people might not know, we do have an e-commerce online store for parts. So right now we have just over, how many?
Just about 18,000. Not 1,800, 18,000 different parts. All makes, models. I've helped people out with Audis. I've helped people out with Evos. So it's not just Dodge. I mean, you know, your daily driver, we probably got parts for you. Whatever it is.
So that's huge. That's just, you know, between me and Tulo doing our parts with it. So we're doing a ton of maintenance on that, and with 2 additional people, it's going to allow us to, you know, push it one step further. So
absolutely.
In the comments, leave what you'd like to see on the site. You might not see, what you want help looking for, anything like that. You know, we're going to expand the website to help as many people as we can. So it's going to stick, you know, Mopar based obviously with the categories, but we are capable of you know, supplying whatever you need for the most part. So we're really, really excited about that. One thing, Logan, why don't you tell them what you've been working on today? So.
I have been working on a cam package. It's something, we got a lot of requests for it. You know, now we can carry a self-install cam package. We have options for headers, you know, not just one. It's whatever you want. Whatever works with your budget, your goals, we have options for it. So, you know, anything from a stage 1 to our, you know, custom grind Satera Tuning shaft, camshaft, we got it. Same thing with if you want head studs, we got that as an option in there. So there's a lot of different options you can choose for, you know, your goals, your power, you know, what works for you. We got it. So
that just piggybacks onto the streamlining the process for everybody. So, you know, as much as we'd love to be able to install it for everybody, we know that the, you know, self-install and you know, the do-it-yourselfers out there want to take advantage as well. So we are going to make it easier for you to select and get what you need. So we're always here for questions and help that way, but you know, just keep that in mind that we are going to have that. So we'll put a link to it in here when we're done, so you can see what it's going to entail and how easy it is to get what you're looking for. So yeah, that's just keep an eye out. So like I said, next month, February is going to be really big for us just because of the expansion we have and what we're going to be turning and offering to our customers there. So yeah, we're excited about it.
Yeah.
So we'll introduce them on the future lives when they're here, so you guys can get them. So maybe we'll sit down and do interviews of the guys so everybody learns the team a little bit better too. So that might be fun. So beyond that, so we decided the subject we'll talk about a little bit more of a quick subject, I guess you can say, just because there's not many variables. But transmissions.
Everybody knows how easy power is to make, but putting it down and keeping the car moving forward is always one of the more difficult parts. So we do get asked all the time, you know, what can my transmission take? How far can it go? So obviously, as anything when it comes to horsepower and increasing horsepower, it will, there's just a lot of variables in place. So we're going to talk generally of a very healthy application and setup of what you can see. So we'll go all the way back to Tulo's favorite, the Neg 1.
God, I love them. God, I love them.
You know, for what they are back in the day, they're actually a very stout transmission. It took a while for tuning to be available, which allowed us to really push them. But we're speaking in stock form naturally. So mainly here we use Sipple for all our transmission needs. So anything beyond stock, he is the man. He's what was in our shop car. He's going to be in our next shop car truck. But yeah, so that he's what if you need to get rid of your stock trans or your trans failed, he's who you go for. Simple, speed, and performance. So beyond that, so Neg 1s, believe it or not, they can take a ton of power. So you know, realistically, you know, 500, 550 foot-pounds of torque. That's kind of where you know you're comfortable with a proper valve body upgrade. And some tuning tweaks. I've had cars that are making 700-800 foot-pounds of torque. Now, you're going to hear me say torque instead of horsepower because, believe it or not, torque is actually what hurts transmissions. It's not horsepower. So that's why you need to understand what you're getting into. You can make 1,000 horsepower, but only 400 foot-pounds of torque, like on a 2-liter turbo car that has 8-to-5-1 compression that makes no torque at all, but they have all the horsepower. That doesn't stress transmissions as much. It's all the torque. So. Yeah, generally 550 on a general basic setup. You do a proper valve body mod and tuning, 700-800 foot-pounds of torque. We have some vehicles out there, even to the point the one that I think stresses them the most is the WK1G platform.
Absolutely.
Heavier all-wheel drive, a lot more load on it. I mean, there's guys out there that are in the high nines on that transmission with the turbo setup. So just a stock trans and a valve body with the tune. So that's where those at. Now we jump into the 8-speeds. So the HP70s, we'll start there. 70, 75 are very much the same. So that's the 70, 90, 95, 75, all that is Newton meters. So that it translates to torque ratings, right? So we'll talk that. Naturally, an HP70 is about 500 foot-pounds of torque, 550 give or take. With proper tuning and maintenance, understanding temperatures, understanding fluid condition, and items like that. We've had cars last 750, 800 foot-pounds of torque for a good life. We actually have the first HP70 car that ever went 9s on a stock transmission here. Bill, everybody used to say they were glass, they couldn't hold power, and we went to prove them wrong. So we were the first ones to tune a HP70 to run 9s, and now there's obviously, as time went on, many, many more that have followed suit. So proper tuning, proper maintenance, you can get it out of them, but you are at the higher end there. So generally 700, 750 is where we can keep them alive as long as they were taken care of.
Now, going into that, racing, taking care of it, what transmission temps, do you as a tuner like to see when people are, using these cars as we, like to use them?
That's a great question. So,
racing.
Believe it or not, I've actually seen people destroy their transmissions because temperature's too cold. So colder is not always better. That's why they have what are called operating temps. So that being said, generally what I like to tell my customers, and this is kind of across the board for them, is if you're at the racetrack or abusing it, a minimum of about 130, 140 degrees is what I want to see it at. In regards to what's on dash Fahrenheit is what we're talking about. Once you exceed 200 degrees, really, you want to minimize the abuse. Now you can, because that is operating temp, so you can, obviously do a wide open throttle pull and everything. But as an example, what a lot of people don't realize, the hardest thing on these transmissions in the cars is like highway pulls, right? Where you're driving a car around for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, it's heat soaked, and then you do a wide open throttle pull, and then you wait 5 minutes, and then you do it again. The heat, it helps break down the fluids in a different manner, and the clutches just don't like heat, and that's why you start to see them fail. So generally, my happy range is 140 to 190. When you're at the drag strip, you'll see a very happy transmission that will live a good while. And shout out to Bill. He's the driver of his car, the good old yellow Challenger, and he understood that, and that's why we have several 9-second passes on the stock trains. He understood the journey. And thanks again, Bill, for the gift. Melissa's holding it up over there, very excited. So,
thanks, Bill.
So you know, that's one of those. Now, you know, if you go on your 210, 220 degrees trying to do a quarter mile pass and hot lapping it, you're going to see slippage. It's just naturally how it goes. Same thing on the other end. These fluids are very thick. So when they're too cold, it changes, you know, the line pressures we command in the tuning and the adaptives are all solenoid based, right? So obviously when you have a fluid that's real thick like syrup, when it's cold, it's going to flow different than that of when it's nice and thin at operating temp. That's why when it's too cold, the solenoid duty cycle doesn't match when it's something that's at operating temp, and it doesn't always supply the actual line pressures we're looking for, leading to premature clutch failure. So that's why you do want to heat them up. That's why racers, you see, they let their cars idle and get them up to temp.
Our shop car, yeah. I mean, our shop car, we had to idle that sucker because the setup we had, we just needed it warm.
Yeah, and that's a great example on the shop car. You know, even though the trans was built on it, you know, we personally removed the thermostat on it, so it took longer, but we had a chiller, so the longer it idled, the better being turbo. But we made sure that I didn't go up to the staging lanes until I saw 130 on the trans temp there. So a lot of the higher horsepower builds for the street cars, we actually put a lower thermostat in for the transmission. Thermostats are not a problem. They're good to have as long as it flows correctly, but we try to you know, get it like a 160 degree thermostat in there, so it helps get the temperature up to temp, but then that starts flowing better through the cooler once you achieve that 160 degrees. And you know, for a street car, it allows it to cool down quicker. So
absolutely.
But yeah, so HP70 stock form, like I said, 700, 750 is where we can get some life. We've pushed some to about 800, but beyond that, the life is going to be limited on it. So
absolutely.
HP90s. I mean, shoot, that really comes down to the condition of the transmission, because I personally, and have a lot of customers, I've had cars go mid-8s on a bone stock transmission unopened. Again, Matt Jesse, big shout out to him, you know, 850 stock motor, stock trans, stock rear end. That was our level 2 package with the 200 shot of nitrous, but that transmission was bone stock. And I have dozens of 8-second passes. I mean, more logs than I can count off of a setup like that. But he did it proper. He maintained the temperatures, the fluids, and the conditions. So that's where they can go. So yeah, they, you know, and you know, an 850 at 155, 160 miles an hour is 1,200, 1,300 foot-pounds of torque. So you know, it realistically, yeah, can you get 1,000, 11, 1,200 foot-pounds of torque? Sure, but
like you said, it has to. It's maintenance. It's
Hey,
taking care of it, and then how you treat it.
100%.
You know, we've had guys with, you know, HP90 cars that they're out in the city sliding it in circles, getting it real hot, and they fail at, you know, less power than like Matt Jesse, just because of how they're using it, how they're treating it. So, you know, you really got to take care of these things, and they'll take care of you. So, you know, you pat its back, it'll pat yours.
Absolutely. And again, you know, mileage is another thing. You can take care of it, but if you have 80,000 miles of, you know, daily driving, clutches slip naturally, so that's 80,000 miles of clutch slipping. Fast, aggressive shift, there's a lot less clutch slippage.
Which
so
it sounds weird, but, you know.
It's a comfort thing, right? So when you have even 80,000 miles, you're going to have a lot less clutchability and so on and so forth. So, but yeah, I mean, the HP90, and that's why even in some of our, you know, 392.57 builds going for big horsepower, you know, our recommendation is just go to a stock HP90 just because they are very stout. And then that piggybacks over to the HP95 and the truck platforms. So again, yeah, I mean, they hold, you know, 950, 1,000 foot-pounds of torque. Naturally, those platforms are heavier, so it now changes kind of what the capabilities are on it. So, you know, we've seen guys on, you know, running bottom 9s, high 8s on a stock transmission with some weight out of it. It's not going to do that forever, and it won't do it for every single one, but it is possible. So the happy range on that is about, you know, 900, 950 foot-pounds of torque out of the truck platform, and then beyond there, a proper trans tune and maintenance will help prolong it, but it's going to be mileage based. Just plan for that to happen. And the weak link on majority of these is going to be the input shaft as well. So there's one option available now and more in the works and going to be out very soon. But, you know, on the trucks, we've seen it time and time again, the SUVs, the TRXs.
They're just
you know,
heavy.
They're heavy.
They're heavy and they're all-wheel drive. So there's no, you know, it's not like, oh, you know, tire will spin and make it softer on the drive line. It's hooking, and it's...
So you got, you know, even a build transmissions, those guys are snapping input shafts, so we have to educate and kind of walk through, you know, how to drive it, basically. So, but yeah, I mean, that's kind of it. And then, like I said, if you need anything above, you just send it to Sipple and you're good.
Now, manual transmissions.
Yeah, manual. Ooh, good manual trans. So, funny thing about the manual transmission is they are the same transmission that comes in Camaros and Mustangs. So, even when you get them built, a lot of the companies won't even give you a horsepower or torque rating because of the fact that the Dodge platform is real heavy. So, about that 750, 800 foot-pounds of torque range is when we start to see the synchros not so happy. And naturally the clutches and
Right.
those, they come from the factory with the twin disc, but it's not designed for that type of power. So upgrading to a proper twin or triple disc to eliminate that. But the downside to the Challengers is that they're heavy. So even building them, we get warned at 900 foot-pounds of torque, 950 foot-pounds of torque, just naturally because of the limitations of the hard parts. So they don't open them up and then change everything inside. They do what they can, but when it comes down to it, it's one of the reasons why you don't hear of many very, very fast, manual cars. There's been a few, mid-high 9-second cars. But beyond that, it's the challenge of it is keeping the transmission alive. So it's just a heavy platform. So they didn't come out with a different transmission. It is a very stout transmission for what it is, and it can be a lot of fun. But do understand, anybody trying to make a ton of horsepower out of a manual, it's going to be your battle is keeping that drivetrain alive. So, but great question, question. So. But that's pretty much it. I mean, that's. You can get into like the Rams with the 5 speeds and or the hybrid 6 speeds and everything like that. The ones we listed are mainly the beneficial ones for performance.
It's what we most often deal with.
But even that, a built 545, it's not going to take anything. The amount of guys I know spend money trying to build those, and it's just one of those.
They'll blow up on stock power.
Oh yeah.
So,
it's
Jeff.
Yeah. Exactly. So performance is what we do, and sadly, those transmissions, even with some mechanical support in regards to upgrades internally, it's just limited on tuning capabilities and what we can do to help reinforce it. So, that's pretty much
now
the trains.
If you're racing often, really, getting on it. How often should you check the trans fluid or change it? What intervals would you personally like to see?
Yeah, it's good because obviously they say the trans fluid that's in it is lifetime or 100,000 miles and everything, but that's for stock stock power. Obviously, once you exceed that, it really to me it comes down to how quickly you race. I'll tell you my shop car, all the passes we had on it, we didn't check the fluid once or change it. One of those you kind of can go. It depends. If you're out every weekend racing it, I would say every couple of months. It doesn't hurt to drain the fluid and swap it out. Right. At least once a year.
Yeah.
At least once a year. If you're heavy, competing once or twice a month at these modern Hemi shootout events and stuff like that, I'd say it won't hurt to do it more frequent, every 3-4 months. But again, you can tell based on how it's responding, how it feels, if you're going to need to address it. Right. But stock transmissions, I'd be more prone to do it more often. But I use Matt Jesse again because I could show you guys how many logs I have on that car. We didn't change the fluid much because of how it was set up. So once a year at a minimum if you race it a lot, but the more you race, the more you can do it. It's expensive fluid naturally, and stick with OEM unless you get aftermarket clutches. Just run the Lifeguard 8. The engineers told us Lifeguard 9 is even better fluid, so if you want to swap for abuse, you can go to that. But if you have stock clutches, that's the fluid to run. That is what we do. And then, Simple Supplies AMS oil, so we run what he recommends based on the clutches he has. So
I know it's not cheap fluid, but it's not it's not a cheap transmission either. Right. So skipping out on fluid will you'll pay the price in the long run.
It's cheaper than forcing a build sooner because of that fluid choice.
Absolutely.
But, good question. So just base it off how you race, how it feels, and like I said, it's one of those. It doesn't hurt to do it more, but it's not also necessary. So what else you got?
What would be better for running more power in the 5.7 charger-based boosted platform, built HP 70 or HP 90? I would say,
depends on the power.
Yeah, it depends on the goals.
Yeah. So as an example,
it's not a direct swap. Going from an HP 90 to HP 70 to a 90, it's not just a direct bolt. And there are other parts that
you need drive shaft, the cross member. Great question though, and a perfect example. If you've checked some of our recent videos, we had the charger that made $899 on pump gas with a built 392 Glenn's car. He had the same question for me, and I told him, it's all based on the overall power you're looking for. I am confident in saying that with a simple built HP 70, we can make 1,000 wheel and about 950 foot-pounds of torque, and I can keep that transmission alive. Once you exceed that, it's going to be the limitation of the physical size of the components. The HP 90 is just physically larger, and that's why they can take more. But so if you don't see yourself ever exceeding 950 foot-pounds of torque, a build HP 70 is more than enough. It's a more direct swap. It's cheaper instead of having to buy a second trans and all the extra goodies and swapping it over. Right. So when we had to talk with Glenn, that's why we chose to stick with a built HP 70, because it was capable of handling the power output that he was looking for. So he made 890 at like 820 foot-pounds of torque. That simple trans is going to live forever. So there was no need to do the HP70. There's no need to buy a $2,500 used core and take the risk, or buy a new one from the dealer and then send it off to be built. That's why our feeling on that. So if you're going to say 4 digits is where you're going and exceeding that, I'm going to tell you to do a HP90 swap, absolutely. But the HP70 is a very capable transmission, especially when you build the internals. So good question. What else we got there, Tulo?
That's about it. I mean, that's more cam.
Well, yeah, we can answer whatever they're saying, yeah.
Cam swap, what are your thoughts on different stall torque converter?
Oh, good question, because that's based on the transmission. So Jeff asked, about the torque converter to the cam. So there's several reasons why you do a cam swap and torque converter at the same time. One, what you're doing mainly with the cam is you're moving the RPM and the torque to a higher state, right? So you lose low-end torque and power, so when you're launching a vehicle, you'll lose some of that low to mid-range power. So you get a torque converter stall that will take you closer to the peak on launch to help aid with the launch and reduce that lag or downtime of the low-end torque. So that's why you do it. The other is because it also, when you get an aggressive cam, the lope on it is tough to tune, naturally. So by putting a loose converter in it, it helps to absorb that chop and that lope when you're driving around, and it helps keep it a little more, street friendly. But on the flip side of it too, putting a high stall converter makes your car feel heavy. So if you've never driven a high stall converter, it doesn't really hurt performance, but when you give it gas, it feels like the car is just heavier until you get to that converter lockup.
It takes some getting used to. It's not, you just hop in it and everything's fine. It's a different driving vehicle.
Yeah, and it's if you're driving manual to auto, it's like you're really slipping the clutch, so you can't fully accelerate until it flashes high. So it helps absorb the lope, but it also helps you get to peak torque. So that's why when you're reaching out to a shop or a trans builder and asking them what torque converter to go with, they want the specs of everything, because they're going to determine where your peak torque is and your horsepower band and try to get a converter that will get you there. So generally on PD blowers, you see that they'll do lower stall converters because they make a lot of torque. They get boost right away.
Now, when you say PD blower, for those that might not know, what do you mean by that?
Positive displacement. So, Whipples, for example, they call them PD blowers because they call it a 3-liter Whipple. So what it, in theory, simulates, if you put it on a 6.4 and you have a 3-liter blower, it's going to turn it into a 9.4 liter. So the torque and power output simulates as if it's a 9.4 liter engine. That's why they call them PD blowers, because they're put onto the engine, and that's what it simulates in regards to airflow. But because of design, they get boost right away when you hit the throttle. So they have a lot of low end and mid range torque. So you don't want to bypass that and put a 5,000 stall in it, and then you're blowing the tire off because there's so much power at that point. So you can get away with a lower converter, and that's why like Hellcats and that platform have those tighter converters, because they have so much torque down low, they don't need to flash higher. But on like a PD blower setup with the big cam, turbo setups to help the turbo spool, you're generally going to see higher stall converters and that to aid to gaining back that low to mid range power that's lost by doing an application like that. So, good question.
On that topic, boost power adder. How much does that really affect, your trans selection? If I'm going to, Pro Charger or Whipple, is that going to change how I want to, build my trans, what trans I want to go with? Let's say I'm targeting like this gentleman. He was asking 800, on Whipple versus Pro Charger, same effect.
So everybody gets stuck on that peak horsepower number. When you say I want 800 horsepower, which one's better, Whipple or Pro Charger or Vortec?
Or the trans.
But understand, that's a peak horsepower number. It doesn't tell me about the low to mid-range power or the power band overall. That's just what that highest number is. So when you understand a PD blower, when you smack the throttle and you get all the boost right away, they have a ton of low-end torque, a ton of it. So naturally, that puts a lot more stress on a vehicle than compared to a centrifugal blower, where it's more linear. So when you smack the throttle, you might only have 2 pounds of boost on low with 15 pounds of boost on the big end. So naturally, a PD blower can be a little more stressful, because when you first start getting these heavy pigs moving, that's where the most stress happens. And if you have a lot of torque in a heavy car that you're trying to accelerate, that puts a ton of stress on it. So, naturally, if you're going for, 1,000 horsepower plus, you want to be considerate of that. But again, you referenced Glenn's car, and that was a Forge 392 with the Whipple, and we did an HP70, and it's going to take it all day long. So it's like I said, looking at the torque and everything and figuring it out, it's going to be what that end-all goal is on it. And at that point, it's more of what that peak is going to be, not power win. But generally, like I said, as long as the torque stays under 950, I'm comfortable with a built HP70. Once you exceed that in any way, shape, or form, doesn't matter how nitrous, blower, turbo, PD combination like we do, that's when, you know, I'm a big fan of the HP90 swap. So another example, Bill's car, we did the V13 Vortec on it. That's going to make, you know, like 1,300 wheel when we're done with this new bracket. But you know, he went 9s on his HP70, and because of his long-term plans, we made the choice to go with an HP90 swap, and now it's a built HP90 swap because we far exceeded his goals. So that car is going to make 1150 foot-pounds of torque and 1,300 wheel plus. So you know, I understand what people say. An HP70 is not going to like that for very long, even with the man simple behind it. It's just a limitation of a hard part. So there's always a limitation based on the mechanical. So
And, you know, with that, you know, it may make it on the dyno, it may live on the dyno, but then once it gets on the street, different scenario, you know, oh, you know, my car made, you know, 1082 on a stock HP90 on the dyno, it's not living on the street.
Yeah.
It's a different, it's just the nature of it.
Yeah, and that's a great thing where you see people, oh, I saw on the dyno they made it. Even if it's a loaded dyno, when you're doing a dyno pull, it's one gear and it's controlled. Temperature, conditions,
there's no wind resistance.
Right, no wind resistance. There's really not the load or the weight on it, suspension moving. It's controlled.
Yes.
You get a car in the street, it completely changes things. And that's where a lot of the misconception comes from is, oh, I've seen the guys make a 1,200 wheel horsepower through a stock HP70. Absolutely, it's on the dyno. It's not a big deal. When you get on the street with the weight, with the load, the aerodynamic shifting, it changes things drastically, and that's a big misconception on it. So, which
is why when we do tunes, you know, we do dyno tune and street tuning. That way we get both, we get everything.
Always. So we spend more time on the street than the dyno for that reason. So, no, great questions. Great questions. What else?
Pretty much it. I mean, that's just intake manifold questions.
Fine, I'll answer.
Boost. What intake manifold recommend for boost? Please take the following.
Let's read. 17 Charger 5.7 cam forged internals. 30 countersall and a turbo kit running separate 9385 tune. As boost, what intake manifold would you recommend for boost? Looking at a 6.1 Holley, maybe a high ram. Also, would a longer runner for the higher ram be more beneficial than a shorter?
Pretty good question.
It's good. It's a very detailed one.
I like it.
So this is the thing when it comes to boosted intake manifold. So the answer is, if it benefits it in an NA, the same exact benefit is going to happen when you're boosted. But one of the differences is that the design of the intake runner helps with velocity of the airflow, which is why a short runner benefits high RPM and a longer runner helps with the low to mid-range. When you're forcing air in yourself, some of that does get tossed away. Now, you want an intake manifold that will flow enough of what you need and not become a restriction, but you don't want necessarily a exaggeration 3-foot long runner, because when you have a power header that's filling things with air like a centrifugal blower or turbo, that's just more space it has to fill before it makes it into the combustion chamber. So generally, a short runner in a proper size plenum is going to be beneficial, just because it's going to help reduce lag and those type of conditions. Now, on the flip side of it, this is something a lot of people don't understand or have a lot of experience with, but the charge pipe size. So we talk about that as well. Benefits of going to a larger pipe, which would be a larger runner and a bigger plenum, is generally you see a little bit reduced intake temps. So, and the reason being is it's a little more free flowing, and compression of the air is what increases temperatures. So when you have more volume to allow that compression to happen, it helps to reduce that. So that's where some of the high rams come into play with what they offer, is because it allows for a little bit cooler of an intake temp. But again, that depends on your intercooler setup and the booster running. But we put a lot of the Holley sheet metal intakes on our turbo setups. The 6.1s are great. I mean, they're the OG. Other than being a little bit heavier than the others, that's a great intake, and always a big fan of that one. If you don't have access to that, then the Holley Sniper race manifold is where we go with that.
Now, why do you say the race manifold? What's
they have a sheet metal one, which is basically sheet metal. It's just not as strong. Where the race version is a bolted lid on it, so it's reinforced and can handle more boost. So that will be dependent on how much power you're running. I've actually seen the sheet metal ones under vacuum and boost expand and contract, which is kind of flex and kind of sketchy. So
it's like in Fast and Furious Danger to Manifold.
Yeah.
Start running too much.
Right. And the Holley High Ram, I know it's a cheap option, but if you don't mind cutting a hole in your hood, go for it. But we have a handful of 1,400 wheel plus cars running the Holley Sniper race intake with no issues whatsoever. So the 6.1 or the Holley race manifold is my vote on it. I think they work fine. Holley fixed a lot of the quality control issues they had. So in recent times, we've had no issues. In the past, we've had to machine all the runners on all of them, but the recent ones we got were totally fine. So you're good with either one of those. It's in the grand scheme of things, the power difference you're going to see, I think, is going to be minimal. So,
Okay.
got any others?
That's about it. Yada, yada, yada. What's our initial torque? These are the real driving components. So different.
At what level of initial torque do you start to worry about the rear drivetrain component? It depends on the application. So as
And how you're using it.
Yeah, give an example. The rear end that was in my 1500 horsepower Charger that weighed 4,700 pounds going 850s. It had a 309 rear end with just a diff brace. Have a ton of abuse on it from me and the previous owner. It's a big variable there. And sadly, the upgrade options are limited for our platform.
Yeah.
We got the pumpkins from OEM, and then you jump right into the billet stuff. If you're a street car, stick with OEM. That's what I can tell you. The cost to go to the billet ones, if you're a street application, it's cheaper and more advantageous, in my opinion, to have multiple OEM ones ready to go versus putting the money into the billet ones.
Right.
If you're a racer and that's what you're going to do with it, I understand downtime and the effects of that on everything. So that's when the billet upgrades come into hand. But it's more of the reinforcement. Performance makes great products that reinforce the the differential mounting, and you can see they make a ton of power and they take a lot of it. So I don't have much concern in that. The axles and the drive shafts are where it really kicks in. Obviously, the truck platforms, you need to do that.
Right.
Usually around 800 foot-pounds of torque, give or take, just because of the pure weight. The cars get away with it a little bit more, but again, I would say it's about the same, just because they're very heavy and it's 2 wheels instead of 4. So it's and it's also dependent on the application. Is it turbo? Is it centrifugal? Is it
Right.
PD? Nitrous? There's a lot of variables there. So that's where you talk with the shop, and they'll be able to guide you right if they know what they're doing. So
That's about it.
cool. I think that was a good one.
Yeah.
So recap, if you're joining late, we just went over transmission Q&As, what power they can take, and about some good questions in there that kind of piggyback into that and other things like that. Team expansion, we got new hires coming on, so you can read back on that and see. And then
Camshaft packages.
Camshaft packages.
On the website.
got them on the website.
Yep.
I still have gear. See, wife's still mad. Please get rid of them. So
There's so many shirts.
we have shirts, hoodies.
You can't use our couch. Too many shirts. Buy them, please.
So the links are going to be in the video, guys. Really appreciate you checking in. We'll be back next week with more updates for you. So we'll see you then. Thanks, guys.